Okay, how about now? Is anything showing?
No,
I'm not seeing anything on my screen.
you can close the screen and reopen it and restart it if you're having that problem.
There you go.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Amany Habib, as Tim just shared with all of you. We come to you from the University of West Florida, and that is in the Sunshine State, obviously. And we both work in the same School of Education. My field, my area is teaching English to speakers of other languages, and Tim's area is exceptional students education. A couple of years ago, we became interested in the model of teaching called the flipped classroom, and we became aware of how it was gaining popularity over time, and we started to ask questions and wonder amongst ourselves about how many people use it, and who knows about it and who doesn't, and so on and so forth. So that's how this study started. We in our research, we realized that the flipped classroom as a model has been used in settings, post-secondary education courses and fields, mainly nursing and other areas. And most of the studies we came across were based on that setting where it was very effective. And we became curious also as to how it was becoming more and more used in K-12. So our curiosity led us to wonder even more about whether something that works well in post-secondary education settings, would that work well in K-12, and what kind of issues and complications would that bring with it? And we found very little research in that area, but we found a number of studies in various international institutions related to the flipped classroom. So just in case you wanted to get a quick summary of what the flipped classroom is, it is a model, and through that model, teachers introduce new content before they discuss it and apply it in the classroom. So in nursing schools, for example, they would introduce content, and then the following class meeting, they would apply the information and work on activities and so on. So with our study, we developed an informal survey of sorts where we based the questions on findings related to the previous studies we analyzed, perhaps challenges and or areas of success. So we developed the items based on those previously published studies. But we targeted our focus on two groups or subgroups of populations of students within K-12 settings, and that is English learners and also students with special needs. The research questions for study one, we had two studies. So the first one had two questions. Is there a consensus in the international professional community that the flipped classroom improves public school student learning and understanding of content. That was one. Number two was what cautions and concerns exist in the international professional community in the use of the flipped classroom with students who are culturally and linguistically diverse, and also students with special disabilities or needs, as well as students who are in rural communities who oftentimes have fewer resources available. To quickly also give you a background about the follow-up study that we conducted, we try to focus on a few things. One of them is the impact of the flipped classroom on teachers' workload, because then we realized that teaching in one format takes on a totally different process as versus the other format. Also, whether students with learning and behavior challenges would be likely to complete home-based tasks prior to coming to class. Also, teacher educators' knowledge of and training of the flipped classroom, and the teacher educators' role in preparing general or special needs educators. The research questions for the follow-up study were, do teacher educators believe that the flipped classroom is associated with increased teacher work? Do teacher educators believe that the students with disabilities derive additional benefits from the flipped classroom? And the third question was, are teacher educators adequately prepared in the use of the flipped classroom to meet instructional needs for students with special needs? The results for study one, we found that most people who responded, participants, believe that the flipped classroom and traditional models are equally effective in general education, but strongly believe that in the effectiveness of a combination of both models and in the benefits of both. A slight majority believed in the effectiveness of the model for culturally and linguistically diverse students, as opposed to students with special needs, as well as students in rural areas, because we were looking at issues related to digital divide and interruption in internet services and so on. For study two, there was the participants believe that there's a need for more teacher preparation involving this model. The majority reported that learners with learning disabilities or other needs and academic deficits are less likely to complete work prior to returning to the classroom. And the majority of the participants indicated that knowledge of the model, that they had knowledge of the model, but limited to no formal training in using it. Based on our study, we strongly recommend that in the age of COVID and post-pandemic era, a hybrid format of teaching in both is here to stay. And therefore, teachers must become aware of the various needs of diverse learners, including ESE students and culturally and linguistically diverse students, as well as students in rural areas, if they are implementing this model. We also feel strongly that additional studies are needed to evaluate the effectiveness of this model in K-12 as it relates to students with special needs or students who come from areas with interruption in their formal education or English language learners. And as was shared previously, the full report on the studies will be published through this conference. So you will be able to read more if you're interested in learning more about the flipped classroom as it relates to teacher preparation programs and working with English learners as well as students with special needs.
So there's right at 3 minutes left if there's any questions.